shop, and you sell them. You have maybe sold them production equipment in the past, maybe wide format. Doesn't really matter what manufacturer, whether it's Conoco or Osei or whatever. Doesn't really matter, because this is an opportunity for you to walk into kind of a warm call and start asking questions about labels. A lot of the print shops right now, there's about 3,200 print shops across the country which fall into this category. They don't do short run labels. And when I say short run labels, I'm talking about 50 to 250 labels, or 50 to 5,000 even. They don't do short run labels for their customers, but they'd like to. So what we've been trying to do is tell the dealers, hey, if you'll go have that conversation with a print shop, with somebody you're already doing business with, or somebody you've been calling on, you've been trying to get your foot in the door, they'll tell you what you need to know. And at that point, you can pick up the phone and call me or call somebody on my team, and we can help you navigate through that conversation. Now that we're starting to pick up some travel, we can hop on a plane and come see you. So it's really not too much of a departure from what our copier or our what we call our legacy dealers are already doing. You're still putting images on paper. It's just now your images are being rolled up from one roll to the other, and it's got a sticky adhesive on the back, and call it a label. So we still talk about full color. We still talk about annual maintenance agreements. We still talk about supporting the customer, just like you would support them in a printer or an MPS or legacy application. So that's how I'll start it off. Art, we gotta want to go any other type of direction?
Yeah, one sec. Phone's going off. Forgot to turn the volume down. So we spoke a lot. We spoke a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about more of what you're seeing in the market for label applications.
Mm-hmm.
It was more about low run applications, and then the ability for a lot of custom applications. And two of the markets that I know we spoke about was, the one was for the food industry,
Mm-hmm.
for custom food packaging, and the other one that we spoke about, since many of the states are going to legalizing marijuana, there's going to be a need for even more labels. Whether, I don't think it's going to be directly to that basic mom and pop shop, but maybe for all those big companies that are getting into distribution.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Maybe if you could.
Sorry. Yes. Perfect. So pharmaceuticals, let's start there. Pharmaceuticals, whether it's recreational, whether it's pet pharmaceuticals, whether it's chemical hand sanitizer, these have been really coming on strong these past 9 months, because they're wanting to do more what we call white labeling. So for instance, you may have a company that makes a certain type of pharmaceutical or a certain type of dog food, certain type of pet lotion, could be CBD, it could be THC, whatever the case may be. And they want to customize that for their customers. So a veterinarian clinic, like a local veterinarian clinic in your neighborhood, the doctor may want to have their own personal pharmaceutical or pet med brand. And so they're going to either the manufacturer of the product or the fulfillment company that fulfills that out. And they say, hey, what if we put our own label on it? And so that we're not competitive with everything that's on the internet. And so the supply chain group or the fulfillment house has that ability to say, yeah, we can do your own label. How many do you need for this and this and this? So they may have 14 different SKUs, and you may have, out of those 14 different SKUs, you may have a couple of thousand labels a month for one customer. And that's what we would consider short run, low volume. And what's nice is for that pharmaceutical company, or again, that fulfillment house, they get that order in from that customer. They already have their images teed up, and they can print those, and they can have those by the end of the day. And they can be either shipping those labels to the customer, or they can be putting those labels on the product and fulfilling those from their facility. So again, it doesn't matter if it's CBD, it could be I talked to two brand new CBD companies coming on board last week who are gearing up for this. They know that they're going to get hit with some, and then there are CBD companies that are making the move to cannabis once cannabis is legalized in their neighborhood. And so they're gearing up. They're getting ready to bring that in-house. Again, the pet pharmaceutical guys, they've already figured that out. But anybody that can, take a short run or a custom product, it could be a food product. We see a lot of activity in beer, although the beer guys are probably not the best to call on for a sale. They are good to get information from. But so short run, custom runs, full color. We can put any type of image. It could be a full color photo type quality piece on a label and put that on a product. Size, we're not too picky on size. These are what we call premium labels, and what I mean by that, these are indoor labels and labels that you'll see on a shelf, not outdoor bumper stickers. We're not in the sticker business, but those applications right there are probably the hottest ones that we've seen. Again, everything from chemical to food, anybody that's doing what could be considered a short run, customized label that they sell to their customer as a fulfillment piece and part of the supply chain.
Interesting. So if your dealership is capable of selling production machines, you've been in that production space.
Mm-hmm.
This really selling these label presses, besides the different substrate, the ink technology, it's basically the same with the pre-press, correct?
It really is, and those seem to be the easiest to get into, because the reason I say that is when we cold call, I've cold called a few of these, a few dozen, a few hundred maybe. We cold call those print shops that already have your production equipment. And again, it may not be your production equipment, because if they have production equipment, the nice thing is we don't really have to introduce them to the technology. Like, we're not coming in like with a 3D printer and saying, hey, would you like to be able to do these really cool things with 3D printing? Because you have to kind of introduce it to them. You have to make them understand what the application is. When we go in and we start talking about labels, these guys already know what labels are. And they're probably being asked already by some of their customers, hey, could you do some short run labels? Well, some of these guys will figure out a way to do it. They'll have a wide format machine and they'll cut it down. They'll cut down labels. They could be tiny little labels. So they'll figure out a way to do it so they don't lose their customer. But the other guys, the ones that are turning it away, or they may be even farming it out, they'll say, wow, we're getting requests for labels. Come in and tell me what you have. So again, you're not having to talk to them about images. You're not having to talk to them about, impositioning or putting the images on the paper so that it prints out correctly. You don't have to teach them all that stuff. They're going to ask you questions, and they're going to go, how fast is it? What's your color saturation? How often do I have to reset and do? They're going to ask you some good productive questions without you having to, start at zero. So that's why I say they're the low-hanging fruit, because they've either been asked about it or they've been thinking about it, and they're already going to know the technology and the applications.
Right. Now, I think it was maybe 4 years ago when you had an event in Indianapolis at a label press show there. I believe at that time, I think it was Andrew that sent me information, or 90% of that label industry is still analog.
That's right. That was at the FTA. That's a Flexo Technology Association meeting. And the Flexo guys, so you have to kind of go back. The Flexo is analog technology,
Right.
and they lay down multiple layers to make up their label. And it's super high user intensity. You got to have a really smart pressman and all this other stuff. Where we walk up to a press now and we pull up an image, in Adobe Illustrator, and we say, print me 1,000 of these. And so the guys at the Flexo show were asking, why are you here? You're not Flexo. We're like, yeah, but we're something you might want to get your head around because it's changing. It's a complementary piece. Now, when they do Flexo labels, they're doing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of labels per run, Dove soap or Energizer batteries. Those all have labels on them. So at the time, probably in that environment, it was about 90% was still the Flexo analog offset. You've heard of offset printing and just all kinds of stuff that are just super high user intensive. What we've done since then is, as we call on new people, we're finding a lot of those pressmen are retiring. So they're not having a real successful time finding people to operate those presses. But what they really like is to be able to pull up that label or pull up that image. They can match the color if they have a rip. They can match the color exactly. If you just have a Pantone number, they can match that. They do all those shortcuts that you can't do with Flexo. So Flexo being analog. So the transition is on. It's being led by a little company called HP. HP has a product called Indigo series that these are $2 to $18 million label presses, and they print on everything from small labels to barn doors. That's not our technology. That's not our segment. That's not what we're going after. But they have done a lot for our industry because a lot of people realize, hey, I can do short runs with digital capabilities, and it looks like the photo that I was just looking at on my computer. So the tech, this is one of those things where technology is emerging as the printers get better. We use in this particular product, the PLS and the PKG, we use MemJet technology, and this has emerged to be, or is turning out to be, used in probably 75% of the guys that are in our category. And it does a great job. And we love the copy quality, we love the print quality, we love the reliability of the whole thing. So yes, it's changed. I would say now, we're still FTA members, I would say that's probably down from 80 or 90%. You're probably still seeing 70%. Art is still pretty high because there's some applications that you can't get away from analog or Flexo or offset, like bumper stickers.
And just like traditional presses, that's why there's still traditional 4-color presses out on the market, because the digital just can't fill it right now. But it goes back to years ago when we all started selling production, and we said, well, okay, from your presses, just why don't you get a digital color machine, this production machine, just to run that stuff that you need quickly. You need those 500 prints. You need full color. You're getting more smaller jobs in, and it doesn't pay to do all that pre-press work and to make ready sheets and get that press running. And then, as you stated before, the quality of the pressman.
Mm-hmm.
The Flexo is basically, it's just a flex. It's the press, but a different type of print technology. It's only going to be as good as the craftsman. And as those craftsmen leave the industry, something's got to fill the void.
Yep. That's exactly right. We're seeing that when we cold call. We'll be talking to typically a generation of guys that have been in that business for 50 years, 40 or 50 years. And there aren't any I won't say never, but there aren't always young kids or the younger generation following up to say, hey, I want to be a pressman. I want to work with inks all day and all night, and I want this to be my next step. So a lot of the change in technology will be brought on by these guys retiring or guys hanging it up, or just the ease of, these guys finally figure out, hey, it's just easier for me to switch this over.
I see this.
And as you're calling, I was going to say, as you're calling, we talk about, last thing I would say in this kind of category is the flexo machines and the offset, they're typically running huge runs. And so you might get somebody that would buy 1 million labels per run because it gets their cost down so low. And flexo typically is very inexpensive once it's all said and done. If you take out the pressman and take out all the time, it's very inexpensive. Even if you figure it in, it's still pretty inexpensive. But your cost per label goes down the more you run. So we talked to customers. We talked to a tractor company in Georgia once, and he says, "Yeah, we've got 1 million labels sitting on the shelf, but we only produce 250 tractors per day." And I asked him, I said, what if one of those labels has to change? What if the tractor changes? What if a feature changes? And he goes, all those labels that we got a good price on, they go into the dumpster. And so we just asked him, hey, look, what if you could do those labels as you need them? And tractors are not a good application because we're not typically an outdoor type label. But if you talked about root beers, or you talked about foods, or you talked about anything that they're running shifts of, pharmaceuticals, whatever, they don't need to buy 100,000 labels or 10,000 labels at a time. They can make their labels when they need them. We call that on the fly, and inventory management or inventory waste. So that's the last thing that kind of comes up when we talk about analog. Analog guys like to run huge runs and put them on the shelf. And you do realize some breakage with those types of labels that you might not get with the digital product.
Right. Interesting. So pretty interesting. A couple of years ago, I took a wide format machine that we had from Rico, and I wanted to count all of the labels on that machine. And I think if I remember correctly, it was 25 labels from roll here to attention, safety, et cetera, et cetera. It was 25 labels just for one machine. And I thought of, just a lot of manufacturing opportunities where, as you just went to the tractors, where one item is changed, then those labels have to go in the garbage.
Yep.
With your technology, if you could give everyone a brief overview for maybe those that aren't familiar with the MEMJet waterfall technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so MEMJet, if you've been in this industry for a little while, MEMJet came out with their print technology about 15, 17 years ago. And it was meant to be a real high-speed ink that was very inexpensive. And it was initially we all thought it was going to compete with the copiers, but they never got their black saturation quite right. They could go really fast. We're talking about a desktop machine doing 120 pages a minute, but they couldn't get it. It was always gray. It's kind of a charcoal gray, and nobody was buying that. So they've stayed in the business, and they continued to develop a single pass print head. These print heads have over 70,000 nozzles, 70,400 nozzles per print head, and that's where we get our CMYK. There's no white in this technology, but in our category, that's okay.
Right.
So the print head has been restructured, redesigned time and time again. And again, for our category, paper labels, premium labels, this thing does a tremendous job. We use water-based, what we call aqueous-based or water-based inks, and these things do a great job of color saturation. Again, I keep bringing that up. We could do over 3 million colors on that print head per pass. And it'll basically print anything we tell it to print. If we have skin tones, we just need to tell it we're doing skin tones. You need to set the profile. There are all kinds of, and a lot of times, I'll say this, a lot of times when you say inkjet or memjet, people start immediately thinking of the old inkjets, where if you didn't use an inkjet printer for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, the next time you went to it, it was dead. You know, the print head was dead, or you had to get new inks because they dried out.
Right.
So memjet has addressed that, and it does its own little maintenance inside the box. It caps the print head when it's not being printed, so that when we do walk up, even if it's been a couple of minutes or a couple of weeks, the print head has been circulating ink. It's been really kind of rejuvenating itself while it's sitting there. As long as it's plugged in, it's turned on, and we start printing immediately. The cool thing about water-based ink is it's approved for primary and secondary food packaging. And that is a big deal when you're talking to a chocolatier. If you're talking to somebody who wants to put their label, put their custom label on a cake or a bakery piece, but also CBD, THC, they also have to have this primary food approval. So the Aquaspace does let us do that. Now, the one trick to it though is that, not really a trick, it's just something to keep in mind. You will have to have a coated paper. So we have many resources to do the paper, the rolled paper, and it just has to have the right top coating. It's called a top coating, so that it will adhere to the inks. And not a big deal. It's readily available. We actually inventory that to sell to the dealer. So we make it available, and then the customers can go out and get that directly if they want. But it's also just a way that we can give them proof of concept. So there's a couple of pieces that go together on it. But like I said, memjet has done a great job of really creating a niche in our industry for this paper label, premium label.
Got it. And before we open up to questions, the ink, which is so important, especially that's basically a captured market. I mean, it's not like they're going to be able to go out and buy ink at Staples or Office Max or on the web, correct?
Exactly right. Yes. Now it may look like stuff that's out there on the web or at Office Depot or especially on the web, but each one of these ink cartridges is chipped, and it only fits this device. So yeah, we do want to capture that, and not so much for the media, but for the print heads and the inks. Absolutely, they're both chipped, and they'll only go in a certain device.
Nice. So we're at we're just coming up to 4:25 mark, and at this time, I'd like to open it up, see if anybody has any questions. So I think you can unmute.
Art, this is Michael Laverty. I do have a couple questions for you guys.
Sure.
Thanks for your time, David. This is an interesting technology. I've seen it just through Art's posts over the years, but we're a Canon production dealer, so this kind of fits a niche actually with two customers that we've got engaged right now currently. So how does it work? Like how do you become an authorized dealer? I mean, I know Muratec's part of Konica Minolta now, but how does the process to onboard work? And maybe that's the cart before the horse, but that's a personal curiosity right now.
It's actually a great question, Mike. Very simple. We have a basic dealer.
Fine, Dave. How are you?
Buddy's in there. But we have a BTA approved contract, and it's just like any other hardware. If you're coming,
We have not as of yet.
copy your dealer, I don't know who that is. But yeah.
Not at this time.
Byron, Byron.
Will do.
So,
You too. Bye-bye.
so again, Michael, it's just like becoming a hardware or legacy type dealer. It's really not too much different. I do encourage the dealers to get service trained on this product, and that's all done online, or most of it's done online. And then we do a lot of training when we do the first installation. But becoming a dealer is pretty easy. Again, it's a BTA approved contract. I can send that to you and let you take a look at it. We can chat. But all you really just need to reach out to me. We'll start a conversation, and it doesn't require you to purchase hardware up front, because this is a little bit different. You need to have a good handle on who you're talking to before you start placing these. So I don't want you to get stuck with a piece of hardware out there that you can't do anything. So I would just say, just give me a shout. I can send you the dealer contract, and yes, we are a division of Konica Minolta, but we kind of, in this little regard, we kind of stand on our own. So anybody that would come on as a Muratec dealer with access to the PO.
Okay, and are you going to share out David's contact information then? Was it shared out? I don't know if I saw it, but I mean, you could shoot that to me offline. You got my info.
I can share it out, and I think it was on the might have been on one of the blogs, but I'll check. But I'll make sure it's out there for everyone.
Yeah, no worries. And then what's the front end for this, David? Is it Fiery, or is it its own? Like, how are people printing to it right from an application?
You can actually, so these have they utilize a Windows driver, so you could actually take a PDF, and from Windows you could send it right over to it, as long as you've got the Windows driver loaded. But the best application to use, and we recommend just Adobe Illustrator. And what Adobe Illustrator lets us do, it lets us set up the picture boards, and it lets us in position correctly. It lets us adjust colors to some degree. It lets us enter some some capabilities. It also lets us draw the cut lines. So you don't just have a label, an image that you're printing. You also have a cut line that if you're using a finisher, the finisher sees that cut line at where to cut the label, and that can be. But all that's done just through Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
Don't even have to have Creative Cloud, just as long as you have Illustrator.
So your answer kind of rolled into my next question. Do you guys do offline? Is it like kiss cuts or die cutting? I mean, is that also part of the Muratec package? How's that work?
Well, we have a couple of finishing devices. We have 4 different finishing devices. I think this will answer your question. So 3 of these are what we call plotter-based drag knife finishers, and they'll cut each individual label. If you wanted a kiss cut or something a little bit different for a pre or a die cut, we do have a bigger machine that we make available, and it uses plates, and it is a semi-rotary die cutter, and it's really quick. We just don't get that application.
Yeah, it doesn't take the short run
that often, but man, where you see it, somebody says, "Hey, I'm running 100,000 labels a week." It can be a real game changer.
Yeah, definitely. And then last question is, so the size of the unit. I was on the website, I think the end of last week. I mean, obviously Epson has those monster label presses, and I think I saw something up similar in that size, but one of our customers does private label manufacturing of a certain product, and they've got a mix match of really old label printers, but they're almost not shelf size, but they fit on a desk basically size. I mean, how big are we talking for this product?
So these would not fit on a typical shelf. If you put it on a cafeteria table, it would demolish the cafeteria table. But the cool thing is the press, the finisher, or excuse me, the printer actually comes in its own box that becomes a stand. It weighs right under 300 pounds, and it's going to take up about the same amount of space as a full-size desk. Okay. The finisher it's gonna take up about, and again, it's also a heavy device, about 400 pounds. The finishers, they're gonna take up about the same amount of space as a segment. I'll just say a segment 4 copier with a finisher on the side. And both of these together, I always tell people, whatever applies, it takes about the same amount of space as it would take to park a Prius, or if you like better, a couple of Harley Davidsons. So if you got space for those 2 vehicles, not both, but one of those 2 or one of those 2 sets, you'll have space.
Sounds good. That's all I got. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking your time for this.
No problem.
Thanks for putting it together too, Art.
You're quite welcome.
And
Anybody?
it's a 110 device too, so it doesn't require any extra electrical requirements. Not to be redundant.
No, that's good to know too.
So we've got the floor open just for any additional questions. We're into our last 10 minutes. So Rob, you have a question?
Yeah, hey, David. Thanks for hosting all of us Canadians. Can you, Michael asked a question around some of the competitive products. They almost look like coffee makers or toasters or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how you compare to the other memjet products out there?
Yeah, it's a good question, Rob. And Rob had a lot of experience selling these, talking about them, real good success up there in Canada. But we do see a lot of other products. This came up just today, this morning, with one of my West Coast dealers. And there's a memjet product. There's literally hundreds of them probably. There's an Affinia, there's Trojan, there's several in this category. But the memjet, what memjet does is basically memjet offers the print engine. So if you can imagine, like in a copier, if you can imagine a drum with a developer piece on it with toner cartridges sitting there, that's what the print engine looks like. So what we have to do as manufacturers is we have to build an engine around it, or an ink delivery system. You have to build the front end unwinder, you have to build a rewinder, and those things, that's where the difference is made. The ability of this machine to do the preventative maintenance on its own, protect the print heads and things like that. That's the difference maker. One thing we don't use, I'll just throw this at you for what it's worth. We don't need a web guide to keep the web straight when it's rolling through at 60 feet per minute. It can get pretty quick. But we don't need a web guide, because we use tension on the front and back, and then we put tension on the web right in the middle. That's a design. That's not a memjet design. That's a Konica Minolta / Muratec / PLS design. So not any other of the other manufacturers use that particular design. And so those are the little types of things that separate us. The biggest thing, though, my number one thing to differentiate this product from the competitive models is the service. So what we do is we talk about having local service. So no matter what, they're not going to have to box this machine up and ship it for depot service. We're gonna train the local dealership or train the local technician. We'll even train, if it's a print shop that wants to do their own service, we'll train those guys, and they can do their own service. But we treat it like an MFP, in that when you buy it, you can go online, you can do your service manuals, you can learn about it, or service modules. You can learn about it, how to do it, how to work on it. We do remote support via phone, and then we can web in. But again, if you need local service can be had. That would be my biggest differentiation. The other, like I said, from a machine feature wise, they're going to be minimal. But if you see, and Rob, you can back me up on this, if you see print quality from one output on a 475, and you walk across the hallway to another booth, and you see a competitive model that uses memjet, but it doesn't use the same ink delivery system, it can literally be night and day. The best comparison I have is when you're looking at the box press, the corrugated press. If you look at the 675 versus its sister model, there is no comparison. And that's all about the design of the ink delivery system. That answer your question? Did that help, Rob?
Yeah, it certainly did, David, and you kind of reaffirmed what we talk about regularly, you and I. So I appreciate that. Thanks very much. One last question I would ask is, just from your experience, what's the kind of percentages in the market of, print for pay versus manufacturing? What do you see in the units going into?
Boy, I tell you right now, Rob, it's leaning heavily on the print for pay. I don't know, I'm not sure why. It may just be for the particular locations or particular dealers, but the print for pay has really started to give us a lot more activity. And it may be the fact that these dealers are trying, or the salespeople are finally figuring it out. Hey, this really is low hanging fruit. But manufacturing, we're still doing, like I said, the food and the pet pharmaceuticals and things like that. I mean, you're doing a lot more of that, but still our print for pay customers are probably, I'd say in the last quarter, it's been 80-20. Right on.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions for David? How about you, Monty from Tahoe?
Well, why don't I share with the group that I'm actually in a sales cycle right now with David. David's been great. I brought the opportunity to him. I don't know anything about, or I only know about the technology through Art and his web share. And so this opportunity popped up, and looks like the opportunity is going to be about $170,000.
Oh,
And, my customer is very excited about it right now, and now I just need to bring home the bacon. So I just jinxed my deal, but everybody knows the sales game here. So I mean, I would encourage anyone here to leverage David's expertise in the sales. He's the one who's done all the homework. I basically let him do everything, and now I'm showing up with numbers. So thanks for your help, David. We'll bring this home.
Right on. Well, and I am very happy to hear that, Monty, because that's exactly what we want to do. We get you to the point where we get labels out there, we get samples, we got samples to your customer. We got exactly the samples they were looking for. They do a little test in-house, and then they start asking me about pricing, and I'm like, I can't give you pricing. You got to go to your local guy to get pricing. So it actually works out really good. That is our intention. And yeah, if you guys want to use me like that, I am very okay with that.
well,
Good luck.
Hey, do you have that bottle of bourbon so you can show everybody?
Oh, I thought you were going to have pictures of that. I have to get up and go get it. It's not close to me. You want me to go get it?
That's okay. Now we're going to raffle off that bottle of bourbon that we promised. So I think the easiest way to do this is to pick a letter out of the alphabet.
Okay. Are you telling me to do this?
And you do that, yeah?
Yeah.
And then either show it to me or tell it to me.
Okay, hold on. I'll I think I can chat with you. Okay.
Pick another letter. Okay. A COH. Can you unmute, please?
Hi, I'm Carol.
Hello, Carol. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You've won the bottle of bourbon.
Thank you.
Quite welcome. Now, do you have my email address?
No, I don't.
So you'll take my email address and pretty simple. It's A.
A
Right, APOST
APOST
at the letter P, the number 4, the letter P, hotel.com.
PH
Right, P is in print, number 4, P is in print, hotel.
Print Hotel. Okay.
And then send me your address and we'll make sure we get that out to you.
Sure.
There you go, David. We got a winner.
All right. That's a commemorative labeled bottle of very tasty stuff. So, and we'll do that. We're going to do this again, right?
Yep. So everybody, for the next 4 months, David and I will be getting together on the first Monday of every month and actually having different topics to try and help educate us all a little bit more in the applications, the labels, and to get us all more familiar with, as far as I'm concerned, how to make oodles and oodles of gross profit. So we want to thank everybody for their time today. And I'll have the next calendar up on a print for pay hotel by tonight. And thanks again. David, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Art.
And
Thanks, everybody.
some chats coming in thanking us. All right, I'm going to close the meeting. Good
Have
talk.
a good week. See ya.
Bye. Bye, everyone. I called David Clearman.